Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Fred Cullum. I'm chair of the West of Scotland branch of IOSH, and I'd like to extend a warm welcome to everyone to our AGM this afternoon, and thank you for taking the time to join us. After the AGM business, we will have a speaker presentation. So moving forward, we've received a couple of apologies, and we'll record that in the minutes. If anyone knows of any apologies, could you please put that into the West of Scotland email address, and we'll pick it up from there. The minutes of the Branch AGM held on the 29th of April 2021 has been circulated, and looking for someone as a proposer and a seconder. If you're happy to put your hand up, we'll try and pick up from that, or shout out your name, or put it into chat. So I say a proposer and a seconder.
Happy to propose, Fred.
Thank you. And the seconder, we get a secondary, any members? See Gordon Stewart. Thank you, Gordon. We don't have any matters arising from the minutes, which then takes us into the previous Treasurer's report. Normally we would have Treasurer bases. We have not had funding in the branch. It was held centrally during the past year as a regional basis, and the only expenditure that we had was for the certificate of merit purchase of certificates and frames. So that's all we have from the financial base. Looking at the branch report, that it's amazing just looking back over the last year that some elements, probably yourselves been thinking along the same way, it seemed never ending, and other times that we seem to get through things extremely quickly. Often heard it said that some might say as we get older that time passes quickly, and others say it passes quickly because we're enjoying ourselves. And I think there's been mixed elements of that in the last year. The pace for some has certainly been relentless, and for others it's starting to pick up as we move forward from a legislative to a non-legislative self-regulation approach in relation to COVID requirements. Something that's familiar with all of us as health and safety professionals. However, as we move forward, there are still many challenges, not just in our own workplaces, but in our personal lives. And we must be mindful of our own well-being as well as others. Despite the weather changes in April, it's time to look forward to a period where some of us may take some time away from work to recharge our batteries. In the summer months, as a branch, we take a break from meetings between June until September, when we start back again as a new session. Some of the milestones in reflecting in the branch include the certificate of merit presentation. To keep the award and the ethos alive, there was a need to organise a virtual event, which was a huge achievement by the subcommittee that organised the event. We're planning to hold a presentation dinner in October, but have come against some hurdles through IOSH HQ, some of which are providing a bit of a challenge to resolve. This year marked our 30th anniversary of the awards, and I would like to extend a big thank you to everyone who's been involved, and hope that we can find a way forward to celebrate the occasion and continue with the awards from this year, or continuing from this year. Many of the award ceremonies or presentation events have been attended by past presidents who were all very complimentary. And for those members who have managed to come along to the Certificate of Merit, everyone has commented how positive it is in outreach to non-health and safety people. In February, for the first time ever, George Mills, recent past branch chair, was speechless when they realised that Lise Hoskins, IOSH president, was talking about him just before presenting him with a president's commendation. Just last month, we were able to welcome members back to face-to-face meeting. It was a great feeling for all who attended, and there was certainly a great buzz in the room, with many staying well beyond when the meeting had finished, catching up and networking with colleagues and friends. In the recent branch survey, 39 members indicated they were interested in volunteering within the branch or within IOSH. This is an incredible number of individuals, and we need to find ways and continue to support these individuals and help them develop. It gives me great hope for the future of the branch. Without the vast number of IOSH volunteers giving freely so much of their time across branches and groups, IOSH could not continue to thrive as an organisation, something that not always recognised by members and others. It's important to acknowledge and thank all these individuals, but it's equally important to provide the support and encouragement to collaborate with partners, influence others, and enhance members and the institution. Members continue to be supported in the branch through IPD and membership grade progression by members who give so much of their own time, and this has been an overwhelming success. Individuals achieving charter membership and fellowship will be recognised later in the meeting. We continue to liaise with higher education students, and in particular the University of the West of Scotland. The branch membership as of March was 561 chartered members and fellows, graduate members 435, tech members 339, associate, affiliate and other members 245, just over 1,500 members within the West of Scotland branch, spread across a wide area from the Fries to Oban to the islands in the west. There are challenges in meeting the needs and expectations of members. Throughout the year, the committee have continued to provide a lively programme of excellent speakers who gave freely of their time to attend our meetings. As a branch, we continue to adapt and lead. We continue to work with partners such as IEMA. In closing, I would like to thank the Branch Executive Committee for their voluntary input, particularly during the past year. To Anthony Atencio, IOSH Regional Manager, for his support, and to you, the members, who continually take up the challenges in your workplace and in your support for the branch. Thank you. We now move on to the confirmation of principal branch officers and members of the branch executive for the next 2 years. Well, there's a varied basis. There are some which are continuing on to their second year as a term of office, and we have some newly elected members coming on to the committee. And I'd like to say a very big welcome to these individuals who are joining us. I am sure you will gradually feel part of the family and welcomed into the committee, and I'm sure that you've also got a lot to offer. Thank you. Just going through, you can see that, again, members of the committee, don't be afraid when we get back more to face-to-face. to come up and speak to us, get to know us, and we'll do our best to support you as individual members in whatever way we can. It's your branch, so make the most of it. We also have to confirm regulations, branch-wise, district, section, constitution. Leading up to the AGM last year, Regulation 15, and we have moved as a branch to meet the requirements of that, and we are working through the branch constitution at the moment to make this a minor amendments so that it all comes in together and reflects the requirements within IOSH. There have been a number of individuals moving from chartered member or moving towards getting fellowship, chartered fellowship. And it's nice to be able to recognise one or two individuals were a bit shy in coming forward with photographs. I'm not going to go through individual names as we take through this with a few slides, but I think it's nice to acknowledge that the work, the determination of individual members to develop and become chartered members and to move on to chartered fellow members. And a lot of these individuals coming through have linked back with the peer groups set up initially with Blair Boyd and supported with Keith Lyle and William Lyons and various others that have been involved in and out of that group as they move forward. So congratulations to all of you and moving through in your membership. And again, thank you to those all involved in the peer review and the support of branch members as we move forward again. There hasn't been any other business brought to the attention of the exec. So on that basis, I would like just to bring the AGM for 2022 to a close and move on to our presentation and our guest speaker for the afternoon.
Thanks very much, Fred.
Just going to introduce you, Chris. Thank you.
No worries.
I don't know an awful lot about yourself, but I know a fair bit about Karrdale, and obviously I haven't seen you and your your dad Eddie, who's I believe often travels at the moment.
Yes.
It's always good to have Karrdale coming along and talking to us, as well as tried and tested means of engaging with business from shop floor to senior management. It's about inspiring, it's about expiring safe communities. And as well as a presentation, which we're given free range to Chris to deliver this afternoon, there's usually a well recognised and useful few tips. It comes with that as well. I note the microphone there, so if Chris happens to burst into song, we'll give him votes out of 10 at the end of the meeting. Chris, can I pass over to you, and thank you once again for taking the time.
No, thanks for having us, Fred, and I hope the votes out of 10 don't come in the shape of tomatoes. So thanks very much for having us along again today, everybody. So as Fred says, I'm Chris from Karrdale. My background is not health and safety. I was a clinical hypnotherapist, and I've now moved into the industry sector. And really what we really do is try to help companies understand some of the psychological subtleties that go on with human beings, help them with engagement plans and strategies and new ways of talking to people, really, with the whole purpose of getting people into the mindset that the whole health, safety, well-being journey really is owned by the frontline people. They're the people that get the first gain from it rather than organisations. That's second. But as a lot of you folks will be aware, that's not always the belief that a lot of people hold. So there's a bit of a journey to go on. But really today, what I thought would be pretty nice to come in and share with some of you folks is really maybe more of a conversation today about some of the common things that we're finding as we're traveling about, dealing with different businesses. And it ties specifically back into what Fred was talking about earlier. We're looking forward when it comes to trying to get some sort of normality back when it comes to returning to work after the COVID experience that we've all had. Now, there's a lot in terms of the sort of return that businesses should really be sort of looking at, that I don't think you folks are getting real support from central government in terms of how we do this. So it's really down to people like ourselves to understand some of the things that our people might be up against and the impact that might be having on them as they go through their day in the workplace. Now, the reason I'm having this conversation with you folks just now is really a lot of companies that we're dealing with, they're asking very similar questions, you know, and the questions that we're getting asked lots of small stuff is starting to happen again. Things that we'd historically thought we had cracked are starting to rise their head again, and we don't really understand why, because we've got the systems in place, we've got the procedures and policies, and they worked for us, but it's all starting to happen again. Why is that? And really, that's not down to the processes anyone has got in their businesses. It's really maybe down more to how our people are feeling as they're going through their day. Because this is happening not just to new people, this is happening to skilled people. We're finding lots at the minute. It feels as if, like when I'm traveling about into different workplaces, a lot of people feel as if they've got a slight sense of despondency when they're in the workplace. Sometimes like a sort of can't be bothered mindset has started to develop in some people. And that is going to have a major impact on their daily engagements and how they get through their day. So to help us understand that, really what I want to start off with is sharing with you folks a thing that in the therapy world, we call it the emotional scale. Right. And the emotional scale is really good for people like ourselves, influential people, to understand, especially if we want to have influence on others when it comes to decision making that they're having. Now, the emotional scale in our world, what we believe really is everybody has this scale, right? And it's got two extremities. One side, you've got fear. The other side, you've got love. And every emotion you experience daily sits somewhere along that scale. Now, we'll look at the two extremities to start off with, fear and love, because really what we believe is that, see, when you're in either one of those two places, you're absolutely terrified about it, or you're head over heels in love with somebody or something, that's when human beings make their most irrational decisions. So to have people in either of those places and making choices is not healthy for us as businesses, but it's definitely not healthy for our people at the front line, especially if they're in dangerous environments. Now, let's stay away from the fear stuff as a start point. Let's have a giggle and we'll look at the love side of this scale. Do me a favour for a moment and think back to the last time you fell head over heels in love with somebody. And think and consider the way that you dealt with that person and how you thought about them. You were probably in that situation where you were looking at this person and you were thinking, they're wonderful. They can do anything. They could almost walk on water, I bet. And you'll probably start noticing with this one individual, you'll start doing things and accepting things from these people that you wouldn't accept from other people. Like, for example, they'll be able to give you nicknames nobody else will be able to call you. You know, you'll also probably find yourself buying things for this person you would never normally spend your money on. But like I say, you'd accept gifts from them and things changing in your world that you wouldn't do for anyone else. Like I remember with my ex, I knew I was in trouble when I started noticing candles, cushions and fake tan appearing in my bachelor flat. That was the point. I thought, right? This is serious, this one, right? But that relationship ended after a number of years, after we got into a conversation one day when she came to realise I really annoyed her when I chewed my dinner. So what we'll find, right, is see, even though somebody can have that extreme emotional response of love, nobody can be held in that extreme emotion for so long, and the intensity of that feeling changes to other emotions, right, as we slide down that emotional scale. But the same happens at the fear end of the scale, right? There's lots and lots of examples where fear, people in fearful situations have responded one way, but that fear changes to other emotions and they respond slightly differently. I mean, in the therapy world, there's lots of stories that people have got when fear has had an overriding reaction for them. Like there's a lot of ex-military personnel that went through horrible things behind enemy lines. They were captured and went through horrific experiences, and they'll read, you can read these people's accounts of what they experienced, and the fear that they went through every day for some periods was horrible, you know, mock executions and things like that regularly. But they all eventually, that sort of report that fear turned into other emotions, as it turned into things like anger, resentment, hatred, you know, because nobody can be kept in that fear situation for so long. Now, the reason I'm sharing this with you is if you think back over the past couple of years of how we've all been living our lives, fear has been a major convincer for us to make decisions as society. But as we start coming out the back of this, we still have lots of people that are feeling the fear. Now, the reason for that is they're continually topping that up for themselves. You know, you look at the media, it's constant fear every time, you know, but as well as that, there's reinforcement messages that people are seeing every day round about them that can sometimes be compounding these bad emotions that they're having. Markings and spray painted in floors, signage everywhere, people walking about streets with masks on, visors on. For every time you see that, it's a reminder there's something to be afraid of. And that actually was compound. So we've had a period of about 2 years where we've been as a society living in fear. Okay, now where this is important for businesses, especially people like yourselves in the safety and well-being game, to really consider this stuff, is historically fear has been a motivating emotional decider that we've used, a leverage that we've used in industry to try and engage people with safety messages, you know, death, destruction, statistics of bad things, statistics of failings. If we want to try and engage people and get rid of any despondency and frustration that people may be feeling just now, we may need to look at this emotional scale as professionals and find new emotions that we can try and tap into to help our people re-engage with the safety stuff. Because if we continue with a fear sort of motivated response approach with communication for this, for safety, is that it might just reawaken some of the fear feelings that people have had for the past couple of years. But it's weird how powerful that really was. I mean, imagine this call was 3 years ago. And I says to everybody on the call today, see in 3 years' time, you folks will all be terrified. You know, we'll be in a state where everybody will be staying away from each other. We'll all be isolated. But because fear is such a powerful emotion, it all happened really, really quickly for a lot of people. So for us as safety professionals, fear might not be the best approach for us to be using moving forward. Okay, because what we can end up having is a lot of people reaching a state where they've got a thing called emotional fatigue. And I think that's where a lot of people might actually be sitting right now when it comes to negative feelings, because the power of repetition is everywhere just now. And if you look at the way that the sort of industry has sort of been moving to try and get people back in workplaces, I know a lot of your businesses will be dealing with supply chain companies, you know, there'll be a lot of subcontractors there. And why I says at the start, even though you folks might not be getting centralised government support for trying to get people back into the mindset of let's get back to work, this is why it's on us, but different companies are moving at different rates and paces for what normal in the future is going to look like, which can be causing confusion for subcontract partners as they're coming through the door. I hope that sort of makes sense to you. So some of these companies that you might be working alongside in projects and jobs might also be working across with three other companies that have all got different rates and paces and rules for how they're moving forward into the future. So we need to find some form of way to communicate some commonality. Now, one of the questions that we're asked at the minute, lots about why we're finding some people are struggling to get back into the workplace, is quite a lot of it can be down to the routines that people have got in place now. I'm finding this actually, we're finding this lots more with organisations that have got a lot of office-based staff rather than those that have got people out in the field more often. We're finding it's harder to get office-based staff getting back into the workplace routine. And we're finding a lot of them. I mean, for some of the companies that we do some work with, I've been doing like conversations with some people, trying to suss out what's been going on. And quite often you're finding that some people have got a thing called secondary gains going on for being at home at the minute. Now, in therapy, what a secondary gain is somebody will hold on to a situation they find themselves in, even though it's maybe not the best, because they get gains from it in other places in their lives. So they'll deal with something that they know is maybe not great because of the extra benefits they're getting elsewhere. Now, examples of that would be from the therapy world. It was very common to see people that would, I mean, you folks will all know the term depression. You know, it's thrown about so much over the past sort of 5 years as the well-being, health and well-being kick's been on the go. But a lot of people still don't fully understand that condition. Like, for example, there's many forms of depression that somebody can actually suffer from. But one of the most common types is a thing called reactive depression, and it's really down to how people talk to themselves. Now, that's just about getting new thinking strategies, but it's very common with people with reactive depression to develop secondary gains, meaning they'll hold on to the sadness, the depression, because they're getting these extra goodies. So it was common for me as a therapist. I'd sit down with a patient and say, what would change for you in your life daily, you know, day to day, week to week? What would be different for you if you could let go of your depression? And a lot of patients would say stuff like, well, see, if I was no longer depressed, well, my brother wouldn't help me by doing the school run for me in the mornings, and my mum wouldn't get me round on a Sunday for my Sunday dinner and do my ironing for me while I was there, you know, and then my sister wouldn't do that. And so there's this list of all these extra gains they're getting in their life, all because they were suffering from depression. Now, in that situation, it's about business. If you've got something like that going on in businesses, because what we're finding with the whole return to work thing, is a lot of people are saying, I can't come back to work, I'm too scared. But when you actually start talking to them, the reality is they've got a comfortable lifestyle that they've developed through the working from home process. But because there's no support for you folks as organisations to try and address that, we need to find new ways of communicating to people and enticing them to get back in there and try and lessen the feeling of the secondary gains. Because for some people, the secondary gains is as simple as, I get to sit in my garden half the day and drink coffee and talk to my neighbour over the fence when it's sunny, but I still get to type. You know, so it's a difficult situation, because the reason I'm saying that is for businesses like yourselves, we've been on this safety culture journey, you know, for a long time. And when you're talking about culture, that's all embracing, that's including everybody that's in your organization. And it's going to be difficult to be fully embraced and engaged with a cultural mission if a lot of people are not really wanting to sort of actively be physically present and take part in that. So we need to find ways of trying to get that engagement going. So now, this is why for a long time now, I know, like George, when he's invited us in the past to some of these sessions, one of the big messages that we were sharing was the role of community and the workplace. And Fred talked about it at the start, at the introduction there as well, but it was about, for us, it's about inspiring safe communities. Now, that is, for me, the bedrock of where businesses like us should really be exploring now, especially now because of what we've just been through. Because if we can get the good community messaging and the setting right in our organisations, we won't need to rely on fear to get people on board. And we can actually start using some of the technique and principles that have actually been used with society over the past years, but flip it on its head and use it in the workplace. Because if we were able to try and access a place, get to a place where our people felt that the workplace locally was really about them getting home, essentially, and that was really the key. It wasn't just a business message, it was something that we all actually believed in, and people could feel it and they could see it. That's the hurdle that we're going to, that we'll be able to jump once we get this messaging right. Because if you look at the models that we've used in business for understanding culture, it's a bit different from the models that like people like me like to use it. I mean, a lot of organizations use the psychology-based models where we're looking to try and create interdependency when it comes to safety culture. But because of the way that the brain works, for a lot of us, it's difficult to get a picture of what that looks like in your head, because most of us think pictorially, right? So if I were to say to you folks just now, like, think of a house, you'd probably see a picture of a house forming in your mind's eye. You won't just see the word house appearing in your brain, you know, because most of us think in images. But when we're striving to try and create this safety culture of interdependency, how would you describe what that looks like to people within your organization? And if we can't paint a picture, we're never going to be able to really get them on side and recruit them. Now, if you look back to the campaigns that have been run for the past 2 years, it's all been about pictures. You know, they use the statistics to lead you up to a picture that they paint in your mind to help you make a choice. And it's linked by an emotion, which was generally fear. So imagine if we started switching that round and turning it on its head. And instead of talking about interdependency, we just talked about community, because it's an easier picture for people to form in their mind. And the bonus is, it doesn't sound corporate. The thing is, with the community messaging, it's important for you folks to know really where it came from. And it doesn't come from psychology. It actually comes from a topic called anthropology. Okay, and I suggested to all of you, it's well worth having a look at anthropology, right? Because it is about human beings, but it looks at it from a different perspective. Okay, so they know that in anthropology, they talk lots about nothing really has changed for us other than language that we have used, right? So today we talk about wages. Before we had wages, it used to be called prey, you know, and it was just about eating. Wages provide us with food. Okay, so there's not too much has changed, but the interesting thing about anthropology for me is they actually do talk lots about culture in there, but they've got, like I say, a different take on it. And they say that there's 4 stages to reaching culture, just like the psychologists do. But I like the anthropology take. And if you look at the way that safety, the health and safety world sort of operates, I think this is a perfect model for you folks to operate. Okay, because the anthropology model, the 4 stages to culture, states this. It starts with first survival of the self, which then leads to survival of families. Survival of families will give you a sense of local community, and a collection of communities will then give you a sense of culture. Okay, now let's look just now at how a nation works. Forget about industry for a second. That's how nations work, really. Because if you look at the culture of a country, that's really just the common themes that are noticeable and observable or legislatively applicable in all the communities. But as you travel about that country, different towns and cities and communities and wee towns and villages, they all feel different to each other. And that's not because of the rules and the laws, but that's because of the people locally that are in there. And I mean, if you do a bit of traveling about, like George says, my dad's doing a bit of traveling at the minute. He is in a camper van. He's traveling all over Scotland. But he's telling me stories all the time. You know, I mean, he says, I can walk into one place. I can like park up my camper van, go for a walk about the town. I can walk into one pub, go for a wee drink, and I sit down and I feel dead welcome. You know, people are smiling. They hear the accent. They hear I'm not a local. So they start suggesting for me, like, you should go and try this place to eat. Go and see this site. Oh, you're here for an adventure. Go and try that. And they'd always recommend stuff. But it's weird. I could leave that place and walk 10 minutes up the road go somewhere different and I could be feeling as if I'm walking in the Wild West. You know, there's no smiling. Everybody's growling at me. You know, I can see I'm waiting for the tumbleweed rolling across the floor. It was last week, he actually, when he was telling me that story, there was one place I walked into, as everybody was looking at me, I just couldn't help but look at the windows as I try to figure out which one of them am I going to fit through, right? So, but if you think about how a pub works, right, it's the same laws, no matter what pub you're running. It's the same laws you've got to follow to run those establishments legally, just like we do with health and safety. We've got the same laws in different industries that we've all got to follow. But as you travel about different locations in your business, different even offices, different rooms, it can feel completely different. Now, the strength in a community is down to the people. And I like the word community because it's actually made up of two separate words. If you think about it, common, unity. Right? And you don't really have a sense of community unless you have something for your people to unify and rally round. Okay, now look again at society, local communities that have got a good, strong, vibrant feel about it. They provide things for their community to help people feel like connected with it, they identify with it. I mean, I stay in Ayrshire, in a wee town just outside Kilmarnock, and where I stay, right, is every year the town effectively shuts down for a week, right, and it's all about community for an entire week. It's brilliant what they do, you know. I mean, they go to the local high school, they select a teenage girl, they give her a crown and say, you are the queen for a week. You know, the high street shuts down, there's fancy dress parades for kids, there's floats on a Saturday, everybody's out, a big party for a week. But that's all about making people feel unified and rallied. You know, there's quiz nights on all the time, there's events on all the, that's all about making people feel connected. Now, the thing is about businesses, years ago, we used to do all that stuff. You know, dinner dances, it was about quiz nights, golf club teams, football teams, five-a-side, all that stuff started to vanish in a lot of industry a long time ago. But we're desperate for people to act as if they are a community in the workplace. It's just historically the language we've used doesn't sound very people orientated, really, does it? You know, we use words like challenge, intervention, behavior, and stop to ask people to do things that actually are supposed to be coming from best intention in a good place. You know, that's the language that businesses, if we've used to try and help our people go and talk to other human beings. That's not very, very humanistic language. I mean, imagine going for a walk up Glasgow Main Street, up Sucky Hall Street. You see somebody about to fall over and we run over, best intention. In our head, we're going, help, 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 help. But we run over and we shout, stop. I need to challenge this behavior through intervention, right? You're going to end up with a sore face, aren't you? So what we need to start thinking about is if we're wanting our people to connect differently at a local level with each other, you know, and with the whole safety message, we need to start learning from what we've just been through over the past 2 years. We need to move safety away from being a reactive, let's use fear to convince people. And I know a lot of you have been doing a lot of work over the years for that, and hats off to you for it, right? I think what we're needing now, though, is it's not more safety skills necessarily. I think people like yourselves, we need to teach you folks messaging skills, communication skills at a different level that you folks haven't been exposed to before, you know? I mean, see everything that's happened over the previous few years in terms of messaging and campaigning, right? See if you had that skill base within your organizations, we wouldn't have the problems we have with safety, you know, because we would have been able to crack this a long, long time ago, right? But there's technique in messaging, right, which we need to start trying to tap into, right? So here's my top tip for you folks to consider to kickstart this sort of new conversation when you leave here, right? In a campaigning world, right, when I'm asked to help groups or organizations or whatever create campaigns, there's a few key things that we need to look at before anyone even says hello, right? The first thing is, what's the sell point, right? Next thing is, What is it that we can do to try and emotionally make this appeal to people, right? So the way you do that is you need to engage with other people, right? Good thing is you folks have got the best product on the planet. You want everybody to get home to their families. It's a brilliant product, right? But we're selling it as if it's a terrible product at times, right? So we need to look at how we're messaging it. Now, the way that sort of what we call message framing works in my world, right, is this actually comes from the art world originally, right? Where a piece of art could be for sale in a gallery, right? The gallery cannot change how that painting looks. Like they can't go in with Tipex or adding up a couple of bits of lines on the painting, right? That's not allowed, right? So the only way to try and sell that painting, if it's been in the window for sale for months and months and months and nobody's buying it, is put it in a brand new frame. They reframe it to try and change the appeal to the eye initially, okay? And once you've got that, that then drags the attention to the rest of the painting. That's the mission. But we can do this linguistically as well. We can do this with language and communication. Now, a lot of businesses, when it comes to looking at framing messages, this is the sort of frame that we find a lot of communication goes out from in industry. So I call this a corporate messaging frame, where everything that we talk about, it tends to link back to cost, productivity, or program. You know, we talk about quality and we like to show lots of statistics when we're sending messages out in industry, okay? But what does that look like to an individual? But also, how does it emotionally appeal to individuals within the organization? And if you can't answer any of those questions, it's maybe not going to land right. So what we can do is we can take a message and we can reframe it. So we can take a corporate frame and change it into what I would call a community frame, where we take the same information that's right in the middle, but we frame it up where we talk about self-worth, we talk about well-being, we talk about families, we talk about surroundings that people will see themselves working in or moving about in regularly, because these are easier things for the mind to picture. And if we can go out and repeatedly do that and campaign these new messages out, that's the way that people will start changing their mind. Because, I mean, if any one of you folks have been in any of the sessions with either myself or Eddie in the past, you will know that belief is really where this stuff is all at. It's not about what people do. That's a byproduct, right? And if we really want to see any change, think about the statements people make. I'll believe it when I see it. People are waiting. They are desperate for business to have the change and go through this new conversation with them, because most people don't want to get hurt. Most people are just a bit fed up now. Most people have got laws and rules covered. They've got them coming out their ears, and they've had a period in their life where they've been made to feel scared on a daily basis. They're emotionally drained. Okay, see the community message, right? See some of your people, some of these people, this community message will be so important for them right now, because some people, the only community they really had was the workplace, and they were told they weren't allowed to go there for a period. You know, that was for some people where they do their socializing. That's where their mates are, you know, and that was all stopped for a period. We need to rebuild and we need to reconnect with our people, and we need to do it in a more sort of emotional based way. People have got the logic in the bag. People know all the rights and wrongs, what's good and bad, what should and shouldn't be in place, right? We've got that cracked. But this is why I'm saying for us, it's now about trying to find the emotional skills that we can use to try and connect. Now, next thing that we tend to do, see, once we've got our message in a frame and we know what it is we're wanting to try and share out and how we're going to dress it up, work, family, well-beings and all that good stuff. Next thing that we need to do when you're going on any sort of campaign is identify what they call contact points. Now, what a contact point is any opportunity you have to get that message out there, right? Now, you get two types, really, of contact point. I would call them formal and informal. Formal ones are where you're getting people into meeting rooms, briefings, you're sending out communications and all that good stuff. They're all very well and good. The ones that actually have most power are informal contact points, right? So this is social situations. This would be you mentioning things and passing, right, that people were maybe not expecting, introducing new language, because you know what rumors are like, they spread like wildfire, but the repetition is the key. But like I says, this stuff is very, very, very powerful when it's used correctly. What I always suggest, right, well, what I have been suggesting a lot recently to clients, right, is consider what you're sharing before you put it out. Okay, like I helped a company not long ago, because that was the advice, right, where they had a message they were trying to share out, and they knew it wasn't going to land emotionally in a very positive way, and they just needed some support to help them put it in the new frame, right? It was as simple as this. They had a success where over a period of a year, they'd reduced the amount of life-changing injuries they had as an organization, right? They dropped them down, I think it was going off the top of my head, from 13 down to 2. So reduction of 11, pretty good, right? But when they were putting the briefing pack together to share that out to all their business units and the frontline supervisors and the likes to brief it, it was very much your standard message. Still got 2 life-changing injuries. Here's the statistics. That's unacceptable. Some of our contracts are actually at risk because of this. We can't continue. We all need to get our heads in the game here. Otherwise, we don't know where we're going to be next year. This could actually impact how we're winning work. Right? That was effectively the message that was going out. Right? But they knew it wasn't going to be the message that they needed to get people on side. And it was simple changes that had to be made just to reframe it and put it in the new box. And all we really done was sort of talk to them a bit like this. We asked our supervisors to brief out this message. We wrote them a script, got them to practice, and this was the message. I'd like to thank everybody for coming along today. I know it's been a busy year. I know there's been a lot of work done by everybody on the project here. And I'd like to thank everybody for all their efforts. Now, look, they've given me some statistics here that I'm supposed to share with you. Look, it does say there that we've had a pretty good year. We've managed to stop 11 life-changing injuries, because obviously we had 13 last year. We're down to 2 this year. Now, statistics are all very well and good, right? They give you a bit of a story, but they don't really give you the full story, do you? Because all the other stories are hidden in amongst those statistics. Because see that number 11, that's more than a number for me. I mean, see the way I'm looking at it, see the gaffer in this room today. I mean, the way I'm looking at that, that's 11 families we've actually saved. All together, we've all worked together to save 11 people going through that pain and suffering that we're doing that this year. Now, like I say, statistics don't give you the full picture. So, because what I mean is, I don't know who that 11 is that's been saved today. That could be mine, could be yours, could be yours, could be yours. But we'll never really know that, will we? But it was because of the efforts that we all made here together. That's what saved those people going through that suffering. Now, see if we were able to save 11 this over the past year. You think you'll be able to help us polish off the final 2 as we move forward into the next year, right? And it was used as a sort of recruiting message. It was the exact same information. It was just dressed slightly differently. But this is why I'm saying it's important for people in our role, I think, to have these skills. Because what I'm finding at the minute is, see, when it comes to briefing and sending information out, we're expecting this to happen at a frontline supervisory level. We send it out and we say, you can tailor and personalize this. But these people are not the best placed people to be able to tell the stories of your business. You folks have got access to all the information. We could be dressing it up and sending it out in the best place, the best position, in terms of communication and emotionally, to set these people up for success. Because supervisors right now are probably in industry the people that have got the most pressure and responsibility on them day to day, but the smallest support network. And expecting them to continue to be the bastion of change at the front line is they need some support. They need a break. They need a rest. And it's down to us to now lead the change, not just ask for it, as leaders in the safety world. And really, when you look at any sort of change for anything, when it comes to big change, the first thing that changes is always the words, the language, and the rhetoric used before any actions change. Okay, you look at history, that's how it all works. So if we want to see change and we want to engage different and we want to engage better with people, especially on this well-being, health and safety journey that we're all on, we might need to start holding up the mirror now and start going, what language are we using? Is it user-friendly? Does it feel nice to people? Or is it based in that fear side of the scale? I mean, I was in a job recently, I still get reports. People going, look, you don't like it, mate, there's the gate. You know, it's still using fear to try and influence and control, right? That cannot continue anymore. People are done with it. They're despondent. They're emotionally exhausted. We need some hope. We need some positivity. We need some light. But see, safety people, you are in the best position to offer that to your people right now. You know, you can give them that hope because we've got a great story. We've got a great product we're selling to these people. We just need to package it right. You know, I mean, if advertisers never package their stuff right, nobody be buying their stuff. You know, imagine Head and Shoulders were just honest. Head and Shoulders, great for getting rid of dandruff, but stings like a right bee if it gets in your eyes, right? Nobody's buying that. We've got to dress it up. We've got to make it appeal, but the skills are there. The skills are there. It's just we need to go and look for them, folks. So really, for me today, this hasn't been about making behavioural change for the masses. This is really, for me, it's been about what the opportunity is for people in our world, the safety world, to try and engage differently as we move forward in the future, you know. So the only thing that will create change is change. That's the ironic thing. So I'm happy to take any questions, whether people feel they want to put microphones on or chat to put in a text box. I'm happy to do that. So this wasn't, like, as I say, like the standard presentation that we normally sort of give. This is something that I thought with the type of people that were coming on the call today, this is common conversations we're having with individuals. I thought was maybe important to maybe sort of open that up to you folks at IOSH to see if there's any gains or benefits that you, because some of you might be finding some of this stuff happening around you and maybe not get a full understanding of why all of a sudden are we having all this bad stuff happening again, you know, and maybe this could be part of the reason. But like I say, happy to take any questions or any conversation points if anyone's got anything.
Well, people are pondering over their questions. I had a wee think there, and we've been, Karrdale have been friends with the branch for well over a decade now, which is quite a long time. And you know, once again, Chris has spoken to us all as if he was speaking to us directly, which is a skill that only very few people have. And you know, it's always a good skill to have as well. Talking about fear, you know, it sprung to mind there that the employers had a fear factor. They had a fear factor if that you didn't come to work, you weren't doing anything right, or if you're at your work, they're overseeing you and they're having a look. And it's a bit like the police when they're driving behind you. You a couple of seconds, it's fine, but after half an hour, you start to panic and you'll eventually do something wrong. Whereas the fear changed, because the fear for employers, when lockdown and the pandemic came into its existence, was they had to let people work from home, apart from construction and other industries, but generally they had to have the fear factor of, if we don't have people working at home, we won't survive as a business. And now the challenge, as Chris said, is people have got into a way of working. I was on a site this morning, and even although we've relaxed COVID rules as per the government guidance, we were all standing outside, and we were standing 2 meters apart in a circle. And it wasn't anybody guiding us, it wasn't anything, it was just falling into that routine, repeat. And again, we thank Chris for some new material, which is always great. We're always great listeners. And also the fact that we had some of the old material reframed, because there was a few reframing in there, which is actually quite refreshing, and it reminds us all of all the repeat and everything that goes with it as well. We are going to try and sort out, if IOSH allows us, in the next 12 months to get Karrdale back in at Hampden to do the half-day session, which is always good. I think we've always had well over 100 at these sessions.
They're always more fun in person, aren't they?
They are always more fun in person, and to be fair to Karrdale, they come along and they give their time up for free for the branch, because they feel that the message needs to get across, and we thank them for that. And also it keeps the cost down, so it means that we can reach every individual. You know, if you've got a stingy company, it's not going to pay the amount that you're going to pay for that. That's why we get the cost down, to make it available for everybody. So on behalf of the branch, Chris, many thanks for that enlightening chat, as we like to call it, and thank you very much for giving up your time.
No, thanks for having us.
I'm having a look here if there's anything. Certainly a friend of mine, Gillian, has just said that was really thought-provoking, Chris. Thoroughly enjoyed your conversation with us. It will certainly make me think about messaging that I use when communicating health and safety. And what I will say is, if you've got a chink of something out of this chat, and you take it back and you use it, and I've used a lot of stuff that Karrdale's put my way over the past decade, and it does make our health and safety role a wee bit easier when you repackage, reframe, retalk, and speak to everybody as individuals.
I mean, I'm with you there. I mean, I think really, essentially, the role of the modern safety professional is it's not necessarily about the historic policemen. We're effectively salespeople now. You know, we've got an awesome product, you know, and it's coming from a great place, but it's just packaged historically in a very sort of negative light. So because of that, a lot of people have got this baggage that's coming with it. I mean, I still hear people talking negatively about it, right? Like, safety, it's all a game, it's all about numbers, blah, blah. So that's beliefs that people have got. And if they hold that as a belief, that's going to impact on what they're doing as they're going through their day. So it's not about changing behaviours, it's about changing mindsets now. And the only way we can do that is through messaging. And if you look at even the TV, let's see horrible products, terrible products, you can watch an advert for it and actually feel not too bad about it by the time the advert's finished. Look, how many funeral plan adverts do you see on the TV every day nowadays? And you're like, all right, this is just another one. You don't feel bad about it, but it's a horrible thing to be thinking about, really, when you think about it, really. But the way it's packaged makes you feel all right. You probably sometimes even consider it. So the packaging is key.
Every insurance
well, that's it. That's all. It's all. That's called reciprocity. And they give you gifts, but really. But see, all that sort of stuff, there is so much technique that's used in the advertising game that we don't really use, that we could. I mean, see if anyone wants to look at like how the science of persuasion works, because there's been research done into this stuff, and I think it would be brilliant for people like yourselves to understand that. It's like look at the work of a guy called Dr. Robert Cialdini, right? He is brilliant. He's wrote a few books, and it's all about how persuasion works, right? So advertisers base a lot of their work off of his, and it's full of stuff like how to point to others as a convincer, you know. So it'll be use consensus as a persuasion, but you see that everywhere. 99% of dentists approve. You know, how many times you've been in a hotel and you see the wee sign up in the back of the bathroom door going, so much percentage of guests that stay in this hotel reuse their towel. It's all about convincing us. Look, everybody else is doing it, so you should do it too. So there's all sorts of technique that's getting underutilized in our world, and that's why I think it should be about campaigning and communication strategies that people like us need to learn about now. I mean, two of my big clients, that's one of the things that I'm in the process of trying to help them get into the sort of mindset of is within the safety department, we should really have a couple of comms specialists to help us package this, because that would be an awesome sort of combination. If you think about it, we've got the technical skills and knowledge, but also people that can help us package it in a way that makes it desirable for those in the masses. You know, so that's what some of the bigger companies that we're working with are looking at and maybe exploring at the minute. And it means they don't need to keep chapping my door, giving us money. They'll love that too.
Thanks, Chris. I'll hand back to Chair, if you don't mind. Fred, back to you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Given the comments that's coming in and picking up some tips there as well as we go through things, I think the session has been really a useful and helpful session this afternoon. So just echoing the thanks here from the branch. Back to sort of concluding with branch business. Our next branch meeting is the 26th of May. Kenny Brown's going to actually be presenting, and without saying too much or taking things away, it's linked back to sort of policing operations and the link with COP26 and trying to get an insight into things from that we can take away from there as well. So it's a virtual meeting. Watch for the information coming out with Branch Mailer and Connect, 26th of May, and I look forward to seeing you again in May. Thanks, everyone.